Welcome to Global Insight, where we have experts discuss global issues in the spotlight right now. I'm Kim Do-yeon, filling in for Oh Soo-young. While many countries that trade with the U.S. expected things to get better for them when President Joe Biden took office after his predecessor, President Trump's America First policy, it doesn't seem like it's the case at the moment. President Biden has made a series of efforts to make sure that American products are favored in the market and made reshoring efforts to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. And now he has turned his focus to biosciences as he signed an executive order last week to bring back pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the U.S. To discuss Biden's reshoring policies, joining us today, we have Professor Hee-dong of Ewha Women's University's Department of Business Administration and Emily Benson, Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Now,
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with you, Professor Yang, because let's talk about Biden's efforts in general. Recent actions, including the Inflation Reduction Act, have been met with concern from trading partners. But with the biosciences executive order, he's just adding more reshoring policies. What's the motivation behind all these moves?
Well, this executive order is named as National Biotechnology and Biomanufacturing Initiative. That means the Biden's government tries to cover very comprehensively the overall aspects of bio industry, such as ingredients, R&D, and also manufacturing. So this executive order is supposed to impact on very comprehensive areas of bio industry, such as green, red, and white bio industry sectors. And what are the major motivations behind this executive order? First one is bio industry is very promising and changing very dynamically. In the next 5 years, this industry is supposed to grow almost 7.7% every year. And new generation sequencing, which is new technology to analyze the genes through the embracing information technologies, is also the future trend in this area. And the American firms have great competitiveness in this area too. But the second reason behind this executive order is the competitiveness of American firms are pretty poor, particularly for the ingredients and manufacturing. The American market, it takes up over 70% in the global bio market. But when it comes to the ingredients, such as API, active pharmaceutical ingredients, the America takes up only 10%. That means 90% of API is being imported from overseas. As for the manufacturing, the American firms are taking only 4%. In other words, more than 96% of the quantities are imported being overseas. And China is taking up over 13% and 23% respectively for APIs and manufacturing. So I'm pretty sure that President Biden may have felt great pressure over this statistics when it comes to bio industry in the United States.
Right, now turning to you, Ms. Benson, now I want to ask about the domestic situation. Who is set to benefit from these policies? Would better trading relations with other countries help America's economy in the long run?
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight a couple of key themes that we see here in Washington, D.C. First and foremost is that this idea of reshoring or nearshoring is not necessarily new. The first Buy American Act was passed in 1933 under the FDR administration, and we've seen ensuing administrations try to pursue similar policies that would incentivize domestic industry, innovation, and manufacturing. And so I do not necessarily regard the Biden administration stance on attempts to reshore as necessarily contradicting previous attempts. Where I do think the Biden administration has engaged in a significant departure from the preceding administration is on international engagement. The previous administration preferred to go it alone and develop these policies without input of key international trading partners. And that's something that's been markedly different under the Biden administration. We see that in the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which held its first in-person ministerial meeting recently in Los Angeles, of which Korea is a participating member and leader. We're also not finding out about these policies on Twitter. There is substantial diplomatic back and forth between key partners, including on the electric vehicle tax credit. which our ambassador, USTR Catherine Tai, has agreed to engage with Korea at the ministerial level. So we really do see a concerted attempt to engage with allies, although that is complemented with the desire to help spur more domestic manufacturing.
Right, and you've already mentioned this, Ms. Benson, but there has been some pushbacks from some of the U.S. trade partners, such as South Korea, who say the effects of Build Back Better are no different from the Make America Great Again campaign of the previous administration, which you say not exactly the case. But there's a suggestion that the Inflation Reduction Act may even violate international trade norms as well as the principle of free trade, which the U.S. arguably used to strongly advocate for. So what do you make of the response this in general? Do you think that it was expected, or Catherine Tai, like you said, has started talks, but was this reaction expected from Washington?
Well, I think the EV tax credit has rightfully garnered a lot of debate and conversation here in DC recently. It was the result of intensive negotiations that came out of the Build Back Better part of the Biden administration's agenda, which was the real effort to pursue an all hands on deck response to climate change mitigation efforts. So this was a big compromise, and the inclusion of the EV tax credit came out of that compromise. I think there are two interesting facets to it that have received a lot of attention. On the tax credit issue, it's divided into a couple of key parts. One is a 50% credit for battery component manufacturing in North America. The other is the provision that critical minerals must be extracted in North America to receive the full benefits of the tax credit. Potentially, most importantly, and the provision that's made the most international news is this provision that says that no vehicle can qualify for the full amount of the tax credit if it's made with battery inputs from countries of concern. We saw this debate come up over the summer in the context of a potential outbound investment review mechanism, but that's the idea of which countries constitute a country of concern. This is overwhelmingly aimed at China, which refines 73% of the world's cobalt, 68% of nickel imports to the United States. And so this really begs the question to what degree the primary incentive here is to onshore domestic manufacturing or engage in a longer term decoupling with China. Now, to the degree that this is outright discriminatory on trading partners, I think that a little bit remains to be seen, because essentially Congress has created a law that no one can meet. In order to achieve the full value of the tax credit, that would require a generation of investment and change. And so even North American automobile makers will not be able to qualify. So I think that will really encourage lawmakers to rethink what they've already passed.
Right. And so now turning to you, Professor Yang, how did Trump's America First policies work for him? Do you see it as having similar effects as what's going on with the Biden administration?
Well, first of all, let me talk about the impacts of Donald Trump's American First policy. Well, the American policy was first coined by Woodrow Wilson, 28th President of the United States. At that time, this term was coined to not get involved with the First World War. But these days, American First seems to mean new protectionism in international trade. Well, the American government has conducted numerous efforts under this coin. First, they levied very high tariffs on steel and aluminum for 25% and 10% respectively. And they try to revise the already signed agreements such as Korea, United States FTA, and they also passed the enacted FIRMA to check with the Chinese investment in the United States, and also they enacted the Tax Cut and Jobs Act in 2018 for the sake of reshoring. Well, the impacts of all these efforts is quite many experts say those efforts pretty limited. The first one is, well, all these efforts make a positive impact on employment. When it comes to production, well, the impact is pretty lackluster. And secondly, I mentioned about Tax Cut and the Jobs Act in 2018. But in that year, the reshoring somehow was explicit because American firms had reduced investment overseas. But in the sense next year, the direct investment overseas has increased back. So that's why lots of experts say that the American first policy may have a limited impact. But my point is, by industry is different story because the American government has very tight control over the medicine makers such as NIH, HHS, CDC, and FDA. So executive office of the president, has a very tight control of all these major decision makers in by industry. So my point is, American government will move in a very integrative way to implement and to make effects from this, the national biotechnology and biomanufacturing initiatives.
Right. So I want to talk more about the biosciences with you, Professor Yang. Like, what do you think will happen to South Korea's pharmaceutical companies as for the after effects of the executive order?
Well, let me forecast that this initiative will make some positive impact because Korean firms are involved with three major efforts. The first one is a new drug R&D, and second one is biosimilar, and third one is contract development and manufacturing organization. And all these efforts may have a minimal, side effect from the initiative. First one, the new drug, Korean and the by industry is ranked 12th in the global market because they have problems in commercializing of their R&D efforts. So when it comes to a new drug R&D, their major partners are global pharmaceutical firms, mostly located in the United States or US. So, the Korean, the R&D companies may have new partners or bigger markets. And number two, biosimilar, which is the new drugs for with the expired patent. This is a major beneficiary from the IRA because IRA purports to decrease the price of medications, and IRA will never ever touch on the imports of biosimilars from overseas, particularly from the Korean market. Number three, CMO, where it takes really time and very risky to change manufacturing contracts. So I do believe that American developers may maintain their contract with the Korean manufacturing facilities. So in short, this executive order may make a very minimal impact or with some positive impact on Korean biotechnology firms.
Right. And Ms. Benson, so is there any other industry that you think will be also touched upon with reshoring or Biden's efforts to make sure the American companies are boosted in terms of competition?
Well, I think this is a big outstanding question right now with regards to U.S. efforts to encourage a new generation of industrial policy. We just saw over summer the CHIPS and Science Act passed, which provides $52 billion to incentivize semiconductor manufacturing here in the United States. And then weeks following, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, which provides $369 billion, making it the largest investment in climate change mitigation efforts, to my knowledge, in the world. And so the big question becomes, what comes next? Are these one-off policies that affect these two sectors in particular? And I think the general understanding is that this will be an iterative process, meaning we'll probably see demands in the coming years for fresh rounds of spending. I would anticipate under Democratic leadership that climate change mitigation efforts would continue to be the primary objective of the administration in close partnership with folks on the Hill. I think if Republicans were to take over the White House, that there would be more of an effort on technology innovation and removing regulatory mechanisms that have been contained in other pieces of legislation. So overall, I think this is kind of a holistic new approach to industrial policy, and we're just at the beginning of what that will look like economy-wide.
Well, I also want to kind of shed light on the domestic politics in the U.S. as midterms just around the corner. Maybe some of the things will slow down after the voting. What do you say? What do you think?
I think it depends. The last poll I saw had the House at about break-even odds. I think Democrats are slightly favored to take over the Senate. If the House goes to the Republicans, that will kind of create a lame duck situation in which Congress will not be able to produce massive, substantial pieces of legislation going forward. If Democrats maintain the Senate and the House and the White House, then I think that would be of great surprise to stakeholders here in the United States. So long story short, it remains to be seen, but one area where we do see momentum and bipartisan interest is on trade. I think a lot of industry folks and civil society stakeholders are very eager to see the United States return to a more traditional trade policy that would see tariff liberalization and deeper engagement in an economic sense with key allies.
Right, I'm afraid this is where we're going to have to end because of the shortage in time. But thank you, as always, for joining us this morning. Professor Yang Hee-dong of Ewha Women's University's Department of Business Administration, and Emily Benson, Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you again, and hope you have a great day or evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.